So in tonight's episode, we are going to dive into the 8th release in the Remus Repeal Reserve series. And just like with any other series, you're going to have those that you like better than others. Myself, I liked the 3 a lot. The 5 was just absolutely fantastic, and I really liked the 7 as well. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into the number 8 and seeing how it is. I'm Tuck, and this is Bourbon Broke. Again, this is the Remus Repeal Reserve VIII. It comes in at 101 proof. As far as an age statement, it's a 3-barrel blend consisting of 10 to 17-year-old bourbons. That breakdown consists of 9% 17-year-old bourbon with 21% rye, 24% 10-year bourbon with 21% rye, and 67% of the blend is a 10-year bourbon with 36% rye. The SRP on this, in my area anyway, was $109. It may vary a little bit on that. I was actually talking with a friend of mine over in the Chicago area, and he said he found it for, I believe he said $85, which is an unbelievable price on that. As far as a secondary, I haven't seen anything as far as a secondary on that, so we're going to have to wait and see how that shakes out. But I really want to get into this and see how it tastes. Let's do it. So I'm really looking forward to getting into this. You know, as I say, it's a series. You're always wondering what that next bottle is going to be like in that series because they have their ups and downs. You can't always just go up and up and up. You're going to have some that you like better than others. And it's like that way with any series. You know, your Bardstown Discovery series, your Elijah Craig and Larceny Barrel Proofs. You're always going to have some that you like better than others, and it's going to go up and down. So I'm looking forward to getting into this one. There's a nice color on it. Not overly dark, but it looks pretty decent. It's whiskey. Always looks decent. Again, like all my episodes, I haven't tried this one yet. Opened it up, poured it out an hour and a half or so ago, let it open up a little. So, my first time trying it. See what the nose is like. Ooh. I'm getting just very citrusy right off the bat. Right off the bat, like that, you know, orange lemon citrusy type of nose. Just a tiny hint of dill in that, probably that high rye. Some oak off the bat, and I do love me some oak. I can't wait to get to this. I'm not even done talking about the nose, and I'm going in for a drink. But overall, in this, I say it's very sweet on the nose on that. Citrusy. See what it tastes like. That's interesting. You know, for being so citrusy right off the bat, it goes to like just a little bit of that leathery tobacco taste and more of a darker fruit. I do still taste a little bit of that citrus, but it's going more of a darker fruit, almost like a plum, raisin, fig type of note. That's interesting. Now that's interesting. On that second drink, it took a little bit of a turn, and now I'm getting that like dark cherry cola in there, which I love. I love the dark cherry cola, which I get a lot of times on like a double oaked. I'll get that a lot. Wow, that's really good. Yeah, I'm getting that dark cherry cola in there along with those dark fruits and still just a hint of that citrus. It's very good. Yeah, I love that dark fruit taste in a bourbon. Get a little bit more oak in there too. That oak's starting to become a little more prominent in there. That finish, it doesn't last a long time. Again, it's 101 proof, so you know it's not gonna get in there a lot. Now, one thing about this too, it's non-chill filtered, and there is a little bit more viscosity than I was anticipating or thinking there was going to be. On that finish, I'm definitely getting more of that cherry cola vibe in there, more of like a darker cherry. Like if you take some like Luxardo juice, poured it in some Coca-Cola, that's what it tastes like. Wow, it's crazy how each drink I take, I'm getting just a little bit of a different note in there almost with each one. Like now on that finish, I'm getting some vanilla on the back end on that. Wow. Wow, it's definitely a roller coaster. It just changes a lot. I'm getting a lot more oak on that finish as well. Wow, this is really, really good. I like this a lot. This is definitely a solid bottle. Yeah. Is it a buy at the SRP? Like I said, my area, the SRP is 109. It's a definite buy. Now, I've heard people around the country have been, getting it at lesser cost, around $85, $90, somewhere in that range. If you don't buy that, you're just crazy for not getting it at that price. Now, anytime you get over $100, you're starting to get up there a little bit in price, on a bottle. So, if you don't mind spending that once in a while or don't mind spending that on a good bottle, it's worth it. Would I go much over that? Maybe just a little bit. I mean, I might go up to like 120, 125, maybe one time. But, at SRP, I think it's a good buy. It's crazy how with each drink, the profile changes a little bit in there. Yeah, this is solid. Okay, I guess a rating on this. I would say this is a pretty solid bottle. I would probably go, wow. I would say I'd give this an 8.4. Being a little stingy on there because I know we're going to come across some bottles that are just unbelievable that I'm going to want to throw up, a good high score on. And I don't want to score something just crazy high, then have to go over 10 for something on a 1 to 10 scale. But yeah, I'd say this is a good solid 8.4. It's a good bottle. I like it a lot. Well, that's it for tonight's episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did drinking it. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like and subscribe button and that notification bell. If you'd like to check out some Bourbon Broke merchandise, just go to bourbonbroke.com, go to the store, check out everything on there. That's it for tonight. Thanks for joining me. And remember, keep your friends close and your bourbon closer. I'm finding a trend here. I'm always out by the time I want to do a cheers at the end. And I think what it is, I just keep talking about it until it's empty. So I'm guessing the length of the episode is going to depend on how much I pour in the Glencairn at the beginning for the tasting. So, or I just fool myself because I want to lie and have an excuse to pour out something else. A little bit more. Cheers. It's good. You're still here. Well, as long as you're here, if you'd like to see a little bonus footage that I took out of the original episode, feel free. What it was, I did a little segment on George Remus himself because the man has a fascinating story, but it ended up getting a little longer than I thought it would, and I figured people would be like, come on, Tuck, why don't you just shut the hell up and get on with the bourbon? So I decided to go ahead and throw it on after the episode. So if you feel like watching it, feel free. Now, before we get into this bottle, let's talk just a little bit about the guy's name who is on the bottle, Remus, George Remus, because it's a fascinating story. George was born in Germany in 1876, and in 1882 moved to the U.S. with his mom and dad. They lived in Maryland for a while, Wisconsin for a while, before they settled down in Chicago. Now, by the time George was 19 years old, he graduated from the Chicago College of Pharmacy. He became a pharmacist, and by the time he was 21, bought his first pharmacy. A short time after that, bought his second pharmacy. But George was getting bored. He wanted to do something a little bit different. Now, by the time George was 24 years old, he became a lawyer. And not just any type of lawyer, he was a criminal defense lawyer. In one of his cases, he even pioneered and coined the term transitory insanity, which later became known as temporary insanity. That's pretty cool, right? So he did this for quite a few years, amassing a great deal of wealth along the way. By 1920, he was bringing in $500,000 a year. This is in 1920. That equates to over $7.6 million a year in today's money. That's a lot of money. But again, George was becoming a little bored and wanted to do something a little different. So this was the year 1920. What else happened in 1920? The 18th Amendment was ratified and prohibition was in full swing. Now George started seeing a lot of these criminals that he helped acquit, and they were getting into bootlegging and making a lot of money. This intrigued George, and he wanted a part of it. So he moved to Cincinnati. Why Cincinnati? Because it sits right on the border of Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana. 200 to 300 mile radius around there sat 80% of the country's bonded whiskey. Now George, he was a smart guy. His wheels started turning. Being a criminal defense lawyer, he found a loophole in the law. He found a way where he could produce and distribute whiskey legally. How? Remember, George was a pharmacist. He could write prescriptions for medicinal purposes for whiskey. Brilliant. So George started buying up distilleries, buying up pharmacies, and filtering all of his whiskey through that. However, George found that you couldn't make just a ton of money doing it that way. So what did he do? He had a lot of employees at this time. He started hijacking his own shipments of whiskey with his own employees. Then he would take that hijacked whiskey and sell it underground illegally and just built a huge fortune. Built a huge mansion, which he called the Marble Palace, and he held just lavish, wild, huge parties there. In one party in 1922, among the guests, he had 100 couples, very influential families around the Cincinnati and surrounding areas, and as a parting gift, he gave all the men a diamond stick pin and all of their wives a brand new car. And this wasn't the first time he did that. He did it quite a few times. And this guy was just building a huge amount of wealth. Now, fast forward to 1925, like all the bootleggers back then, pretty much all of them, George got busted. He went to prison for 2 years in Atlanta. While in prison, he met another inmate, befriended him, and in time ended up telling him his story and let him know that his wife was actually in total control of his entire wealth. Well, it just so happens this inmate was not an inmate at all. It was actually a federal agent. He didn't use the information George had given in him to bust him more or whatever, charge him more. Rumor has it, he went up and had an affair with George's wife. I mean, you just cannot make this shit up. It's crazy. So anyway, George gets out, but before then, a few years prior, rumor has it that he was in the basement bar of the Seelbach Hotel in Louisville. And I don't know if any of you have stayed there before, but if you do get to Louisville, I highly suggest it. Whenever I'm in Louisville, that's my hotel of choice I normally stay at. Just a really cool old hotel. Anyway, down the basement bar, he met this young author. They had some drinks and had a lengthy conversation. That author ended up being F. Scott Fitzgerald. And in 1925, came out with the novel, The Great Gatsby. Yeah, the story of Jay Gatsby, the bootlegger, held the lavish parties, spent all kinds of money on his guests. Now, the official story is, the inspiration came from something totally, completely different. But if this actually did happen, And F. Scott Fitzgerald and George Remus had drinks and a lengthy conversation at the Seelbach Hotel bar. I'm not saying, but I think that's pretty much what happened. Anyway, that's enough of George. I'd like to get into this bottle. I just scratched the surface on the life of George Remus. If you would like to know more, I highly suggest the book The Bourbon King by Bob Batchelor. Came out in 2019. Fantastic book. Now, I haven't read the book, but I did listen to the book on Audible, so I had someone read me the book. But it's a fantastic story. This guy was freaking crazy. Anyway, onto the bottle.